Listen to this topic not as a series of unhappy life stories, but as the price of being intelligent. History has always admired intelligence, but it has rarely rewarded it with happiness. When we look closely at the lives of history's smartest individuals, philosophers, scientists, artists, and thinkers, we notice a strange and uncomfortable pattern. Extraordinary intelligence often walked side by side with deep dissatisfaction, loneliness, and inner pain. This is not coincidence. Highly intelligent people did not simply know more facts. They saw reality differently. They noticed patterns others ignored. They sensed dangers before they arrived. And most importantly, they asked questions that did not have comforting answers. While ordinary people adapted to the world as it was, intelligent minds constantly compared the world to what it could or should be. And that gap between reality and possibility became a source of permanent frustration. History shows us that many great thinkers lived ahead of their time. Their ideas clashed with religion, tradition, power, or social norms, and societies rarely welcome those who disturb stability. Instead of praise, these minds often received rejection, isolation, or punishment. But the struggle was not only external. The greatest conflict happened inside their own minds. Intelligence comes with awareness, and awareness removes illusions. The smarter the mind, the harder it becomes to believe in simple answers, comforting myths, or easy happiness. Doubt replaces certainty, reflection replaces peace, overthinking replaces rest. These individuals could not turn their minds off. They analyzed themselves as deeply as they analyzed the world. They questioned their own motives, fears, and choices without mercy. So when we ask why the smartest people in history were often unhappy, we are not asking about weakness or failure. We are asking about the psychological cost of seeing too clearly in a world that prefers comfortable blindness. And perhaps the most unsettling thought is this: maybe intelligence did not make them unhappy. Maybe it simply prevented them from being easily satisfied. So if intelligence brings awareness, and awareness removes comfort, then the real question becomes, what exactly does intelligence take away from a human being? Intelligence gives people many things, but history shows that it also takes something essential away. Not suddenly, not violently, but slowly and almost invisibly. And this is why many of the smartest people in history did not collapse overnight. They faded, withdrew, or lived with a quiet dissatisfaction that never fully left them. The first thing intelligence takes from a person is illusion. Most societies survive on comforting beliefs that the world is fair, that effort is always rewarded, that good intentions are enough, and that meaning is guaranteed. Intelligent minds throughout history were often the first to notice cracks in these stories. Philosophers in ancient Greece questioned the justice of the gods. Thinkers in the Enlightenment challenged divine authority. Scientists saw patterns that contradicted religious certainty. Once those illusions disappear, they do not return. And without illusion, comfort becomes fragile. History shows that many intelligent individuals were not pessimists by nature. They simply saw too much. When Socrates questioned moral certainty, when Copernicus displaced humanity from the center of the universe, when Darwin revealed a natural world without intention or design, they did not only change knowledge, they removed psychological shelter. The world became larger, colder, and less personal. And for the people who understood this first, happiness became harder to justify. The second thing intelligence takes is silence. An intelligent mind does not rest easily. Ancient scholars wrote about this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Aristotle spoke of the burden of contemplation. Medieval thinkers described the restless mind as both a blessing and a curse. History repeatedly shows that highly intelligent individuals struggled with mental stillness. Their minds returned to unanswered questions, unresolved contradictions, and moral uncertainty. Even moments of joy were often interrupted by reflection. This constant mental activity creates distance between experience and enjoyment. While others live inside the moment, intelligent minds often observe the moment from outside. They analyze it, measure it, question its durability. Happiness, however, requires a certain blindness, a temporary forgetting of consequences, limits, and endings. Intelligence makes that forgetting difficult. The mind stays awake when the body wants rest. The third thing intelligence takes is belonging. Throughout history, intelligent individuals often found themselves misaligned with their societies. Their ideas moved faster than cultural acceptance. Their questions challenged authority, tradition, and collective comfort. As a result, they were frequently misunderstood, isolated, or labeled dangerous. Socrates was executed not because he was violent, but because he unsettled certainty. Galileo was condemned not for error, but for insisting on a truth society was not ready to absorb. This pattern repeats across centuries. Intelligence separates before it unites. The individual who sees differently often stands alone until time catches up, if it ever does. And while history may later celebrate these figures, their lived experience was often one of quiet exclusion rather than recognition. Another thing intelligence takes is simplicity. Intelligent minds struggle with absolute answers. They see exceptions, contradictions, and limitations in every system. Where others find peace in belief, intelligent individuals often find questions. This does not mean they lack faith or values. It means their values are constantly under revision. Certainty feels dishonest. Final answers feel incomplete. And living without certainty is emotionally expensive. History shows that many intelligent people did not suffer because they lacked purpose, but because they saw too many possible purposes, none of them absolute. This creates paralysis, doubt, and a sense that no single path is entirely justified. Life becomes a series of trade-offs rather than clear choices. Finally, intelligence often takes the ability to be easily satisfied. Satisfaction depends on expectation, and intelligence raises expectations relentlessly. Intelligent people imagine alternatives, better systems, deeper meanings. They compare reality not to what was, but to what could be. This comparison creates progress, but it also creates dissatisfaction. The world is always behind the ideal. This is why many of history's most intelligent minds were not visibly miserable, but quietly unfulfilled. They functioned, they worked, they contributed enormously, but internally they lived with a tension between understanding and acceptance. Intelligence did not destroy them, it simply refused to let them settle. So when we ask what intelligence takes from a human being, the answer is not happiness itself, but the conditions that make simple happiness possible. Illusion, silence, belonging, certainty, and easy satisfaction. These are often the first casualties of a mind that sees too clearly. And history suggests that this is not a flaw in intelligent individuals, but a cost they pay for seeing the world without protective filters. Intelligence often takes away something people rarely notice at first: the feeling of belonging. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, as awareness grows and alignment with the surrounding world weakens. History shows that many intelligent individuals did not choose isolation. It emerged naturally as a consequence of how they perceived reality. Belonging requires shared assumptions. It depends on agreeing, often unconsciously, about what matters, what is acceptable, what is worth believing, and what questions should remain unasked. Intelligent minds, throughout history, struggled with this unspoken agreement. They noticed inconsistencies where others found comfort. They questioned traditions that gave people identity and stability. And once those questions were voiced, or even silently acknowledged, belonging became fragile. In ancient societies, identity was tightly bound to religion, civic duty, and communal values. To belong was to participate without disruption. Thinkers who challenged these foundations were not merely disagreeing, they were threatening cohesion. Socrates did not withdraw from Athens. Athens withdrew from him. His questions did not isolate him by intention, but by consequence. When a society senses that someone does not fully share its assumptions, distance forms, even before punishment or exile. This pattern repeats across centuries. Intelligent individuals often found themselves intellectually ahead of their time, but emotionally out of sync with their environment. Their ideas arrived before society had the language, patience, or emotional readiness to absorb them. As a result, they occupied an uncomfortable space, present yet not fully included. They lived among others but not with them. Belonging also requires simplicity. Shared identity depends on clear categories, right and wrong, us and them, sacred and forbidden. Intelligent minds tend to complicate these boundaries. They see nuance where others seek certainty. They hesitate where others commit. This hesitation is often interpreted as arrogance, disloyalty, or danger. History shows that communities rarely welcome those who refuse simple alignment. During the Middle Ages, scholars who questioned theological certainty were labeled heretical not because they lacked faith, but because their thinking destabilized collective belief. In the Enlightenment, philosophers who emphasized reason over tradition were often socially isolated, even when their ideas later shaped entire nations. Belonging was postponed to the future, while loneliness was experienced in the present. Another reason intelligence erodes belonging is emotional asymmetry. Intelligent individuals often feel disconnected, not because they feel less, but because they feel differently. Their concerns are abstract, long-term, or systemic, while the surrounding world is focused on immediate survival, routine, and social roles. Conversations stop aligning, priorities diverge. What excites or troubles the intelligent mind fails to resonate with others. History suggests that this misalignment creates a specific kind of loneliness, not the absence of people, but the absence of recognition. Intelligent individuals are often surrounded yet unseen. They speak but are not truly heard. Over time, many stop trying to explain themselves. Withdrawal becomes quieter than resistance. Belonging also requires emotional safety. To belong is to feel that one's thoughts will not endanger one's position. Intelligent minds rarely enjoy this safety. Their ideas provoke discomfort. Their questions expose uncertainty. And societies, especially during periods of instability, respond defensively to such exposure. Distance becomes a form of protection, both for the group and for the individual. History shows that many intelligent figures were only fully embraced after their death, when their ideas no longer posed an immediate threat. Belonging in their case was retrospective. They were included in memory, not in life. Statues replaced conversations. Praise replaced understanding. Over time, this pattern conditions intelligent individuals to expect exclusion. They lower their emotional investment in groups. They observe more than they participate. Belonging begins to feel temporary, conditional, or illusory. This does not always lead to bitterness, but it often leads to detachment. So when intelligence takes away belonging, it does not do so through cruelty, but through clarity. Seeing too clearly makes it difficult to fully merge with collective identities built on simplification. The intelligent mind stands slightly apart, not above, not below, but aside. And history suggests that this distance is not a personal failure, but a structural consequence of thinking differently in systems designed for agreement rather than understanding. By the time we reach the end of this story, it becomes clear that intelligence was never simply a gift. or a curse on its own. It was a trade, a quiet, lifelong exchange in which something essential was gained and something equally essential was lost. History does not show us intelligent people as tragic because they failed at life. On the contrary, many of them contributed enormously to humanity. They changed how we think, how we see the universe, how we understand ourselves. But what history often hides between achievements and discoveries is the cost of living with a mind that refuses comfort. Intelligence strips away illusions, but those illusions were never meaningless. They were emotional shelters. They allowed people to belong, to rest, to feel secure in answers that did not demand constant revision. When those shelters collapse, the individual stands exposed to uncertainty, and uncertainty is not a neutral space. It is exhausting. The intelligent mind lives in tension between understanding and acceptance, between truth and peace, between seeing clearly and feeling at home. This tension does not disappear with success, recognition, or time. If anything, it deepens, because the more one understands the world, the harder it becomes to simplify it again. History suggests that many intelligent individuals did not suffer because they were misunderstood, but because they understood too well. They saw systems fail before others noticed. They sensed contradictions beneath stability. They recognized limits where others saw permanence. And once these realizations settle in the mind, they cannot be undone. Belonging, comfort, and simple happiness require a certain willingness to stop asking questions. Intelligence makes that stopping difficult. The mind remains alert, even when the heart wants rest. Over time, this creates distance, not always from people, but from the emotional rhythm of society itself. Yet this distance is not without meaning. It is the same distance that allowed progress to exist at all. The same separation that caused loneliness also created innovation. The same dissatisfaction that prevented peace also prevented stagnation. History moves forward because some individuals cannot fully belong to the present moment. So when we ask why the smartest people in history were often unhappy, we must be careful with our language. Unhappy does not always mean miserable. Often it means uncontained, unsettled, unable to accept easy answers. Their lives were not defined by despair, but by friction between what is and what could be. Perhaps intelligence does not remove happiness entirely. Perhaps it simply changes its shape. Instead of comfort, it offers meaning. Instead of peace, it offers clarity. Instead of belonging, it offers perspective. These are not inferior rewards, but they are heavier ones. History remembers intelligent individuals for their ideas, their discoveries, and their courage to think differently. But behind every breakthrough lies a quieter story. The story of living without filters, without guarantees, without emotional shortcuts. And maybe the final truth is this: intelligence does not make life darker, it makes it sharper, and sharpness cuts both ways. The world advances because some minds cannot rest inside it, and those minds, in return, pay a price that history only fully recognizes long after they are gone.